In the meantime, Nolan is on the Drake Toll Show. Nolan, what's going on?
Hey, Drake. I want to, first of all, thank you for talking about BYU. I think you talk about BYU more than anyone save the Sports Nation guys. But deep in the heart of Cougar Nation, representing them, I want to thank you for what you do. And then I want to say I'm excited for BYU football because I think we're one of the first teams to pretty much sign back every player that played last year that's meaningful. And what a time to be a Cougar fan, because we've got AJ tearing it up in basketball. We've got Yegor Demon representing us with the Nets, Puka with the Rams, and then this football team should be a top 10 team next year in the preseason polls. So thank you for repping the Y and singing the praises of the Cougars across the United States.
Love it. Thanks for your call, Nolan. That's Nolan out of San Antonio on the Drake Toll Show. Look, I think the world needs to know there are, in taking the role with Westwood One, having a national radio show, one of my first goals when I sat down and wrote out, okay, what do I want to do, is talk about the teams, the organizations, the storylines everyone else seems to be missing. And there was an 11-1 team in the Power Four that didn't make the college football playoff this year. We set the precedent that you can be elite, borderline elite, and still miss the playoff. And if people are like, oh, well, BYU would have gotten blown out. Okay, that's hypothetical. And Alabama lost 38-3. Didn't mean they didn't deserve to be in the postseason. They won a game in the playoff against the SEC. But yeah, I think there are underrepresented colleges, universities, storylines like BYU going 11-1, or the Cougars having a really good go at it with their players returning to the roster. Bear Bachmeier being one of them, and they're the most underrated team in college football in the last 6 years. 4 of those 6 years, they've finished in the top 25. They've never began the season in the AP top 25 in that 6-year run, though. So they continue to win, and they get no respect for it in the offseason. More people should be looking at BYU as an elite athletic department because of the investment they're making. And AJ DeMonts is another example of that. The number one player in the country in basketball that is leading a basketball team that could win multiple games, make it to the Final Four, win a national championship. They have those capabilities in March Madness, those BYU Cougars. I'll be on site, actually. Headed to Utah Valley for BYU Arizona. Big game in college basketball here in a few weeks. Nolan, thanks for your call. Great segue into college football and the most underpaid coach in the entire country, Curt Cignetti. This is the Drake Toll Show. Joe Pompliano.
Every team, every player.
Sorry. I see what I did there. I see what I did there. Joe Pompliano. Curt Cignetti will soon sign a new contract with Indiana that pays him at least $12.5 million per year. But after digging into the numbers, Cignetti might still be the most undervalued coach in college football. I love this. Joe Pomp does a really good job. Talks a lot about the Savannah Bananas and how the finances of the organization work. He does a great job. He says that Cignetti, we all know what he's done at Indiana. It's remarkable. Turned a perennial cellar dweller into a national championship favorite in 2 seasons. Listen to this. It has transformed IU's athletic department because before 2025 kicked off, ticket revenue surpassed $13 million before the season even kicked off. Indiana announced a $50 million stadium naming rights deal. So they made $13 million on tickets, $50 million on the stadium name. Fundraising at a record high. Billionaire IU alum Mark Cuban is donating to Indiana for the first time ever. Pomp says, but that's the obvious stuff. Cignetti's real impact comes in admissions. Listen to these numbers. The marketing vehicle for the University IU football. 24 million people watching the Rose Bowl. 18 million watching the Big Ten Championship. It's the most in a championship game in 5 or 6 years. More than 2 million people watched a 3-hour commercial about the show when College Game Day visited Indiana's campus. This publicity, that marketing, and I can tell you as someone who works for the Savannah Bananas, one of the best marketing mogul organizations in America, that marketing is invaluable. There's not a price tag you can put on what that does for your university. You cannot quantify accurately how much Indiana is winning right now by winning in football. Hundreds of millions of dollars in publicity, marketing, PR alone. Listen to these numbers. Here's what college football does for you. May I? Hello, NC State. Hello, Boston College. Hello, Cincinnati. And hi, Auf Wiedersehen. Oregon State. UCLA. Rutgers. Any of you could have been Indiana. Any of you could fit the mold of an Indiana who sucked for a long time and now they're good. And this is what happens. Indiana sets a school record for enrollment. 10,000 freshmen. 73,000 applications. In 2019, Indiana was at 44,000 applications. They were at 54,000 when Curt Cignetti was hired. Immediately started winning football games. Jumped to 67,000. Now 73,000 people have applied to go to Indiana because kids want to watch good football. And IU, since so many students are applying, and they can only admit a certain number, they're leveraging by rotating the composition of their student body toward out of state and being more selective academically. 50% of their enrollment comes from out of state. And listen to this, important distinction, out-of-state students pay $30,000 more in annual tuition. $12,000 for those from Indiana, $42,000 for non-residents. They are raking in the money. Those out-of-state students are worth $60 million more to Indiana than their in-state counterparts. Median high school GPA of 3.94, the highest in their history. And Pomp nails it here. Better sports means more applicants, which means better students, which means higher rankings. Higher rankings lead to more applicants and eventually higher tuition revenues. IU, because they're winning in football, can become an academic juggernaut? Yes. Yes, that's the beauty of what college sports is doing right now. But they're also doing it in one of the most relentlessly resourceful ways. Miami, they have 5 5-star players, 40 4-star players. Ole Miss, you watched those two teams play last night. 3 5-star players, 33 4-star players. Fewer than Miami, no doubt. Oregon blows everybody out of the water. 6 players on their roster that are 5 stars. 52 players are 4 stars. I've told you, LSU, 66 combined 4 or 5 stars. The Indiana Hoosiers, hold on to this. The Indiana Hoosiers have 0 5-star players, 7 4-star players. I just told you NC State. I just told you Cincinnati. I just told you UCLA. You can do this. If Indiana can do it, you can do it. When you go to work today, when you're at Pilates with Lane Kiffin, when you're in the donut shop because you're a teacher and you're off on Fridays because you teach at the private school and you're getting donuts, meeting a friend, catching up over coffee, and they say, what do you think about sports? You tell them this. Miami, 45 blue chip recruits. Oregon, 58 blue chip recruits. Indiana, 7. That Indiana team just beat Alabama 38-3. Curt Cignetti is firing coaches across the country because universities want what Curt Cignetti has. They play tonight against Oregon in a rematch with a shot at a national championship on the line. And what's crazier is the changing of the guard is becoming more and more aggressive. Here are team rankings per On 3. Team rankings of juggernauts in college football in the transfer portal so far. Number 32 in transfer portal recruitment, Texas. At 38, Oregon. 40th, Georgia. 50th, Notre Dame. 51st in transfer portal recruiting. With 0 transfers in, 8 transfers out, Miami. They're in the national championship. 56th in America in the transfer portal, Ohio State. 22 players have left the program. Alabama ranks 60th. The 60th net portal class right now in all of college football, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Indiana is certainly building it off the transfer portal. Half their starters transferred in, but Curt Cignetti came in 2 years ago. Of course, he had plenty of players transfer in with him. 7 4-star players, 0 5-star players, and they're dominating everyone. And I think they'll dominate again tonight against Oregon. Will they win? What does domination mean? Maybe it means 20-13. But suffocating Oregon, given the defense of Indiana, is the best still alive in the college football playoff. And Miami, that takes nothing away. It detracts nothing from Miami because of how good Miami is on that side of the football. But IU, a 70% chance to win the game. Yesterday, you know what I did? I'm going to do this. I get a lot of, I get comments sometimes, like, hey, I've been listening to the Westwood One lineup, hearing a lot of sports betting talk. And there are the next show is You Better You Bet, right? Betting is going to be talked about for sure. I try to stay away from it, and not because I don't do it. I'm constantly sports betting, but because I know there are other shows that are going to give that to you at the network, and I give them their flowers. But listen to this from last night. Listen to this. I had Ole Miss $100 in their money line. I didn't hit. I also took Ole Miss live. Didn't hit. Then I took Ole Miss live again. Didn't hit. Bad night. And worse than that, I always try to hedge a little bit. Like, hey, let's do, if I'm going to put $100 on somebody's money line, let me put a home run parlay on something else. That home run was this. Listen. Carson Beck, 1 or more rushing touchdowns. Cash happened right at the end of the game. To win the game, Miami, cash happened. And under in total points, Ole Miss, 24.5. They scored 27. That was $25 to win 206. So I dropped off the face of the earth in betting last night. I'm going somewhere with this. But I made a genius decision to put like 6 units on Indiana to win the national championship. And I took it at 3 p.m. yesterday. Why? Because they were plus 125. We're talking about one of the most dominant teams that college football has seen since 2019 LSU. One of the most dominant teams that we've seen in this sport's history, namely in the modern era. 14-0 on a march to 16-0, the first 16-0 team in college football history. I believe they'll win tonight. I believe that they will win me much money, thank you, on that bet. Because Indiana is a buzzsaw, a juggernaut, a 38-3 against Alabama, and I believe they'll prove it again against Oregon, and they're doing it with less talent per Rivals or 24/7 or however you want to rank these kids. Those rankings are stupid. They're the biggest losers. They're the idiots of the day. They give you a star based on who's recruiting. Well, Georgia's in the mix, so give them another star. Indiana doesn't get that liberty. BYU doesn't get that liberty. They just win football games. 310-840-4910. Call or text the Drake Toll Show. Westwood One Sports. Westwood One Sports app. Alex Dono is the Miami Hurricanes expert, and his team that he covers is going to the national championship. That's up next on the Drake Toll Show.